Hello, friend. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight. Get comfortable, adjust your pillow, let your shoulders drop, and take a slow, gentle breath. Tonight, we're going on a peaceful journey together, back through time, to one of the most fascinating civilizations that ever existed. Ancient Egypt. For the next 2 hours, I'll be here with you, sharing 100 remarkable facts and stories about this extraordinary culture. There's no rush, no pressure. Just let my voice wash over you. If you drift off to sleep, that's wonderful. If you stay awake and learn something new, that's beautiful too. Let's begin our journey together, slowly, gently, back over 3,000 years. The foundations. Fact 1. The ancient Egyptian civilization lasted for over 3,000 years. To put that in perspective, Cleopatra, the last pharaoh, lived closer to the time when we landed on the moon than to the building of the Great Pyramid. Just breathe that in for a moment, such an immense stretch of time. Fact 2. Ancient Egyptians didn't actually call their land Egypt. They called it Kemet, which means the Black Land, referring to the rich, dark soil left behind by the Nile's annual floods. Such fertile earth, the foundation of everything they built. Fact 3. The Nile River flows from south to north, which is why ancient Egyptians referred to traveling north as going downstream and south as going upstream. They organized their entire sense of direction around this life-giving river. Let your breath flow like that river, in and out, steady and calm. Fact 4. Egyptian workers weren't slaves building the pyramids. Archaeological evidence shows they were paid laborers who received wages, medical care, and proper burials. Teams of workers had names like Friends of Khufu and took great pride in their work. Fact 5. Ancient Egyptians invented one of the earliest forms of toothpaste, made from ingredients like crushed rock salt, mint, dried iris flowers, and pepper. They cared deeply about dental hygiene, though their bread, full of grit from stone-ground flour, often wore down their teeth. Fact 6. The Egyptian calendar was remarkably accurate, with 365 days divided into 12 months of 30 days each, plus 5 extra festival days. This calendar would later inspire our own. A gift across millennia. Fact 7. Both men and women in ancient Egypt wore makeup, particularly around the eyes. This wasn't just for beauty. The dark eyeliner, made from minerals like galena and malachite, actually helped protect their eyes from the harsh desert sun and prevented infections. Fact 8. Cleopatra VII, the famous queen, was actually Greek, not ethnically Egyptian. She was a descendant of Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's generals. But here's what made her remarkable. She was the first of her dynasty to actually learn the Egyptian language. She spoke as many as 9 languages. Fact 9. Ancient Egyptians domesticated cats around 4,000 years ago, but cats held a special, almost sacred status. Killing a cat, even accidentally, could result in the death penalty. When a pet cat died, family members would shave their eyebrows in mourning. Fact 10. The ancient Egyptians were master beekeepers. Honey was precious to them, used as food, medicine, and even currency. Reliefs from 2400 BCE show detailed beekeeping practices. Imagine the golden sweetness, the gentle hum of bees in the desert air. Daily life and innovation. Fact 11. Contrary to popular belief, both men and women could own property, conduct business, and even initiate divorce in ancient Egypt. Women had more legal rights than in many later civilizations, including ancient Greece and Rome. Fact 12. The ancient Egyptians invented breath mints. They created small pellets made from frankincense, myrrh, cinnamon, and honey to freshen their breath. Such attention to the small comforts of life. Fact 13. Egyptian children, both boys and girls, went naked until puberty. In the hot climate, this was practical. They wore their hair in a distinctive sidelock of youth, one braid worn on the side of an otherwise shaved head. Fact 14. Ancient Egyptians played board games, and one of the oldest known is Senet, which dates back 5,000 years. The game had religious significance, symbolizing the soul's journey through the afterlife. Game boards have been found in tombs, ready for the deceased to play in eternity. Fact 15. They invented the world's first form of bowling. A ball and pins were found in an Egyptian tomb dating to 3200 BCE. Just imagine, people laughing and playing the same games we enjoy today, thousands of years ago. Fact 16. Egyptian beer was thick, nutritious, and often drunk through a straw to filter out the chunks of grain. Workers building the pyramids received a daily ration of beer as part of their wages, about 4 to 5 liters per day. Fact 17. The concept of a 24-hour day originated in ancient Egypt. They divided daytime and nighttime into 12 hours each, though the length of an hour varied with the seasons. Fact 18. Egyptian physicians were remarkably advanced. They performed surgery, set broken bones, and even had specialized doctors, some focusing on eyes, others on teeth, others on internal ailments. The earliest known physician in history was Imhotep, who lived around 2650 BCE. Fact 19. Women could become doctors in ancient Egypt. Merit Ta, who lived around 2700 BCE, is considered the first female physician in recorded history. Her image was carved on a tomb, honoring her medical knowledge. Fact 20. Ancient Egyptians created one of the first forms of antibiotic medicine. They used moldy bread to treat infections. The bread mold contained penicillin-like properties. They didn't know why it worked, but they observed that it did. The architect who became a god. Let me tell you a story now about a man named Imhotep. Just relax and let the images form in your mind. Imhotep lived during the reign of Pharaoh Djoser in the 27th century BCE. He wasn't born royal. He was a commoner, but brilliant, a polymath who served as the pharaoh's vizier, architect, physician, and high priest. When Djoser wanted a tomb unlike any before, Imhotep conceived something revolutionary. Instead of the traditional flat-roofed mastaba tomb, he designed a structure that would reach toward the heavens. He stacked 6 mastabas on top of each other, each smaller than the one below. The step pyramid at Saqqara rose 200 feet into the sky, the first pyramid ever built, and the first large-scale stone structure in human history. Imagine the workers' amazement as they realized what they were creating, something that had never existed before. But Imhotep's genius wasn't just in architecture. He wrote medical texts, observed the stars, advised the pharaoh with wisdom. After his death, his reputation grew and grew until something extraordinary happened. He was deified. A human being, elevated to godhood. For thousands of years after, Egyptians prayed to Imhotep as the god of medicine and healing. Such a beautiful reminder that our actions, our creativity, our compassion can echo through eternity. Just breathe, and let's continue our journey. Women of power. Fact 21. Hatshepsut was one of ancient Egypt's most successful pharaohs, ruling for over 20 years. She declared herself pharaoh, not queen, and is often depicted wearing the traditional false beard of kingship. Fact 22. To legitimize her rule, Hatshepsut claimed she was the daughter of the god Ammonius himself. She commissioned beautiful temples and monuments, including the magnificent terrace temple at Deir el-Bahari, which still stands today. Fact 23. Nefertiti, whose name means the beautiful one has come, wasn't just famous for her looks. She held unprecedented power for a queen, appearing in artwork in positions typically reserved for pharaohs, smiting enemies and wearing the royal crown. Fact 24. Some scholars believe Nefertiti may have ruled briefly as pharaoh after her husband Akhenaten's death, possibly under the name Neferneferutin. The mystery of what happened to her continues to captivate us. Fact 25. Queen Tai, wife of Amenhotep III and mother of Akhenaten, was possibly the most influential queen of the 18th dynasty. She appeared beside her husband on official occasions as an equal, and even corresponded directly with foreign rulers, highly unusual for a queen. Fact 26. Cleopatra VII was an intellectual powerhouse and skilled diplomat. She wrote medical and cosmetic treatises, now lost, and ancient sources describe her charisma and conversational ability as more captivating than her physical beauty. Fact 27. Ancient Egyptian women could serve as priestesses in temples. The highest religious position a woman could hold was God's wife of Ammonius, which came with immense wealth and political influence. Fact 28. Queen Ankhesenamun, wife of Tutankhamun, wrote a desperate letter to the Hittite king after her young husband's death, begging him to send one of his sons to marry her so she wouldn't have to marry a commoner, likely I, who would become pharaoh. The Hittite prince was sent, but was murdered before reaching Egypt. Fact 29. Egyptian royal women sometimes married their brothers to keep the bloodline pure. While this seems shocking to us, in their worldview, they were descended from gods, and gods married their siblings. It was about maintaining divine status. Fact 30. The first recorded peace treaty in history was negotiated partly through correspondence between two queens. Ramesses II's wife Nefertari exchanged letters with the Hittite queen Pujahepa, helping to establish peace between their nations around 1259 BCE. Death and the afterlife. Fact 31. Ancient Egyptians believed the heart was the center of intelligence and emotion, not the brain. During mummification, they carefully preserved the heart but removed and discarded the brain, which they thought was useless. Fact 32. The process of mummification took 70 days. The body was first dried using natron salt, then wrapped in hundreds of yards of linen. Prayers and spells were recited throughout the process to protect the deceased's journey to the afterlife. Fact 33. The Egyptians didn't just mummify people. They mummified beloved pets and sacred animals, cats, dogs, birds, crocodiles, and even bulls. Millions of animal mummies have been discovered. Fact 34. Inside a tomb, everything the deceased might need was provided: furniture, food, jewelry, clothing, and small servant statues called shabdi. These figurines would magically come to life in the afterlife to do work for the deceased. Such care for those who had passed. Fact 35. The famous opening of the mouth ceremony was performed on mummies to restore the deceased's ability to breathe, speak, eat, and drink in the afterlife. Priests used special tools to symbolically touch the mummy's mouth. Fact 36. The Book of the Dead wasn't actually a single book, but a collection of spells and instructions to help the deceased navigate the afterlife. Each copy was personalized with the deceased's name. Fact 37. In the Hall of Judgment, the deceased's heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, goddess of truth and justice. If the heart was heavy with sin, it would be devoured by Ammit, a demon with a crocodile head, lion's torso, and hippopotamus hindquarters. If the heart balanced with the feather, the soul could enter paradise. Fact 38. The Egyptian concept of the soul was complex. They believed each person had multiple spiritual components: the Ka, life force; the Bi, personality; the Ak, transformed spirit, and others. All needed to be united for eternal life. Fact 39. Common people couldn't afford elaborate tombs, but they still prepared for the afterlife. Simple burials included a few treasured possessions, some food offerings, and prayers written on inexpensive materials. Fact 40. the Valley of the Kings contains 63 discovered tombs, carved deep into the limestone cliffs. These hidden tombs were meant to protect the pharaohs from grave robbers, though most were looted in antiquity. Only Tutankhamun's remained nearly intact. Story 2: The Boy King. Now, let's talk about Tutankhamun. Close your eyes if you haven't already, and picture this. He became pharaoh at approximately 9 years old. Just a child, carrying the weight of a kingdom on his small shoulders. His original name was Tutankhaten, living image of the Aten, but he would change it to Tutankhamun, living image of Ammonius, as Egypt returned to the old gods after his father's failed religious revolution. He married his half-sister Ankhesenamun when they were both children. 2 baby girls were born to them, but both died. Their tiny mummified bodies were found in his tomb, tucked away in small coffins. Tutankhamun ruled for about 9 years and died at approximately 18. The exact cause remains debated, perhaps complications from a broken leg, perhaps malaria, perhaps a combination of both. He was a minor pharaoh, his reign relatively unremarkable in the grand sweep of Egyptian history. But in 1922, archaeologist Howard Carter discovered something extraordinary. After years of searching, Carter found a sealed tomb in the Valley of the Kings. When he peered through a small hole in the door by candlelight, his patron asked, "Can you see anything?" Carter replied with words that echo through time, "Yes, wonderful things." Inside were over 5,000 artifacts, golden thrones, chariots, weapons, jewelry, and a solid gold coffin containing the boy king's mummy, face covered with the iconic golden mask we all recognize today. This minor pharaoh became the most famous of all, not for what he did in life, but for what remained after death. His tomb whispered across 3,000 years, telling us, "You were young, you tried your best, you were loved, and you were remembered." Rest now, we'll continue together. Engineering and architecture. Fact 41: the Great Pyramid of Giza is made of approximately 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons. It remained the world's tallest man-made structure for over 3,800 years. Fact 42: the pyramids were originally covered in smooth, white limestone casing stones that reflected sunlight, making them shine brilliantly. These stones were later removed and used for other buildings in Cairo. Fact 43: the ancient Egyptians didn't use wheels to move the massive pyramid blocks. Instead, they slid them on wooden runners, pouring water on the sand ahead to reduce friction by up to 50%. Fact 44: the Great Pyramid was aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. It's accurate to within a fraction of a degree, an astonishing feat without modern instruments. Fact 45: inside the Great Pyramid are narrow shafts that point toward specific stars. Some believe these were symbolic passages for the pharaoh's soul to ascend to the heavens. Fact 46: Abu Simbel, Ramesses II's magnificent temple, features 4 colossal statues of the pharaoh carved into a cliff face. Twice a year, on dates believed to be his birthday and coronation day, sunlight penetrates deep into the temple to illuminate the statues inside. Fact 47: when the Aswan Dam threatened to flood Abu Simbel in the 1960s, the entire temple complex was cut into blocks and reassembled 200 feet higher. It took 4 years and was one of the greatest engineering projects of the modern era, saving ancient engineering. Fact 48: the Lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, stood approximately 330 feet tall and guided ships for over 1,500 years before earthquakes destroyed it. Fact 49: Egyptian architects understood load-bearing principles and used columns extensively. The different column styles, papyrus, lotus, palm, weren't just decorative but represented the plans of Egypt and the forces of nature. Fact 50: the Temple of Karnak took over 1,500 years to build, with each pharaoh adding to it. Its great hypostyle hall contains 134 massive columns, the tallest reaching 70 feet high. Walking through it must have felt like wandering through a forest of stone. Science and knowledge. Fact 51. Ancient Egyptians were accomplished astronomers who created accurate star charts and calendars based on the heliacal rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. Fact 52. They developed sophisticated mathematics, using fractions and geometry to survey land, calculate grain storage capacity, and design their monuments. The Rhind mathematical papyrus, from around 1650 BC, shows they understood concepts like pi. Fact 53. Egyptian physicians wrote medical papyri describing hundreds of diseases and treatments. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, a surgical text from around 1600 BCE, describes 48 cases of injuries and their treatments, organized from head to toe. Fact 54. They understood that the heart pumps blood throughout the body, a remarkable insight for the ancient world. They could even feel the pulse in different parts of the body. Fact 55. Egyptian surgeons performed complex procedures including skull surgery, dental work, and limb amputations. Archaeological evidence shows patients often survived these operations and lived for years afterward. Fact 56. They created prosthetic toes for amputees. A prosthetic toe found on a female mummy from around 1000 BCE shows where patterns, indicating it was actually functional, not just cosmetic. Fact 57. Ancient Egyptians discovered that honey had antibacterial properties and used it to dress wounds. Modern science has confirmed that honey is indeed effective against many types of bacteria. Fact 58. They created the first known pregnancy test. A woman would urinate on wheat and barley seeds. If the seeds sprouted, she was pregnant. Wheat sprouting meant a girl, barley meant a boy. Modern tests have shown this method can actually detect pregnancy with reasonable accuracy. Fact 59. Egyptian chemists developed sophisticated embalming techniques, perfumes, and cosmetics. The word chemistry itself may derive from Kemet, the Egyptian name for their land. Fact 60. They practiced dentistry and even created tooth fillings using a mixture of minerals. One mummy from around 2100 BCE was found with gold wire holding loose teeth in place, perhaps the first dental bridge. Story 3. The Heretic Pharaoh. Let me tell you about one of history's most fascinating figures. Relax your jaw, soften your forehead, and listen. Akhenaten came to power as Amenhotep IV around 1353 BCE. Everything about him was unusual. His portraits show him with an elongated face, thick lips, a pot belly, and wide hips, distinctly different from the idealized pharaohs depicted in other artwork. But his physical appearance was nothing compared to what he did next. In a civilization where religion had been stable for over 1,000 years, where hundreds of gods were worshipped, Akhenaten declared there was essentially only one god, the Aten, represented by the sun disk. He abandoned the traditional capital of Thebes and its powerful priests of Ammonius. In the desert, he built a completely new city, Akhetaten, horizon of the Aten, now called Amarna. Imagine it, an entire city rising from nothing, dedicated to a new vision of the divine. His wife, the beautiful Nefertiti, stood beside him as almost an equal. Together they had 6 daughters. Artwork from this period is strikingly different, intimate family scenes of the royal couple playing with their children, kissing them, holding them in their laps. Such humanity, such tenderness, so rarely shown in royal art. But Egypt wasn't ready for his revolution. The old priesthoods lost their power and wealth. The people missed their familiar gods. After Akhenaten died, his successors worked to erase his memory. His city was abandoned. His monuments were dismantled. His name was struck from king lists. Yet he couldn't be completely forgotten. His art, his poetry, his vision of divinity influenced religious thinking. Some scholars see echoes of his monotheism in later religious movements. One man's dream, preserved in desert ruins, waiting to be rediscovered and understood. Breathe gently, we continue. Art and culture. Fact 61, Egyptian art wasn't trying to be realistic, it was symbolic. Figures were shown in a specific way, head in profile, eye facing forward, shoulders facing forward, hips and legs in profile. This showed each body part from its most recognizable angle. Fact 62, size in Egyptian art indicated importance, not actual physical scale. In a scene, the pharaoh would be drawn largest, then nobles, then common people, then enemies or servants. Fact 63, the ancient Egyptians invented paper as we know it. Papyrus, made from the papyrus plant, could be rolled up, was relatively light, and was much easier to transport than stone or clay tablets. Fact 64, Egyptian scribes were highly respected professionals who underwent years of training. Only about 1% of the population could read and write. A common saying went, "Be a scribe. Your limbs will be sleek, your hands will grow soft." Fact 65, hieroglyphs could be written left to right to left, or top to bottom. You could tell which direction to read by looking at which way the animals and people faced. You read toward the faces. Fact 66, the Rosetta Stone, discovered in 1799, was the key to deciphering hieroglyphs. It contained the same text in hieroglyphic, demotic, everyday Egyptian writing, and ancient Greek, allowing scholars to finally crack the code after centuries of mystery. Fact 67, ancient Egyptians loved music and dancing. They played harps, lutes, flutes, drums, and tambourines. Professional musicians performed at temples, parties, and funerals. Fact 68, Egyptian literature included adventure stories, wisdom teachings, love poems, and myths. The Tale of Sinuhe, from around 1900 BCE, is considered one of the finest works of ancient literature. Fact 69, they wrote beautiful love poetry. One poem reads, "Your love is as mixed throughout my body as salt is in water, like a medicine mixed with honey." Such tenderness across the ages. Fact 70, Egyptians enjoyed elaborate wigs made from human hair, sheep wool, or plant fibers. Wigs indicated social status and were often elaborate and perfumed. Both men and women wore them, especially on formal occasions. Economy and trade. Fact 71, ancient Egypt didn't use money until the late period. Instead, they had a barter system based on standard values. A deben was a standard unit of weight used to value goods, about 91 grams. Fact 72, workers were often paid in grain, which served as a form of currency. A typical worker might receive about 4 to 5 sacks of grain per month, enough to feed a family. Fact 73, Egypt was wealthy largely because of the Nile's predictable flooding, which created incredibly fertile farmland. They grew wheat, barley, flax, and vegetables in abundance. Fact 74, the ancient Egyptians traded extensively with neighboring regions. From Punt, likely modern-day Somalia or Eritrea, they imported myrrh, frankincense, ebony, and exotic animals. Queen Hatshepsut's expedition to Punt was considered so important she had it depicted on her temple walls. Fact 75, cedar wood from Lebanon was highly prized since Egypt had few large trees. They imported cedar for shipbuilding, temples, and coffins. The relationship with Byblos and Lebanon lasted thousands of years. Fact 76, gold from Nubia, south of Egypt, made the pharaohs fabulously wealthy. In the New Kingdom, so much gold flowed into Egypt that other kingdoms wrote letters begging for some, saying gold is as common as dust in your land. Fact 77. Egyptian pottery was practical but beautiful. The amphorae, tall storage jars, were used to transport wine, oil, and grain across the Mediterranean. Empty amphorae have been found from Egypt to Greece to ancient Italy. Fact 78. Glassmaking became an art in Egypt during the New Kingdom. Egyptian glass beads, vessels, and jewelry were traded throughout the ancient world and were highly valued. Fact 79. The Egyptian textile industry produced fine linen that was almost transparent. Royal linen was so fine that 5 layers could be worn and still show the skin beneath. Fact 80. Salt was precious for food preservation and was mined from deposits in the desert. Workers in the salt mines had one of the hardest jobs in ancient Egypt. Just breathe, you're doing wonderfully. Let these facts drift through your mind like boats on the Nile. Story 4. The Builder Pharaoh. Ramesses II, known as Ramesses the Great. Relax deeper now, and let me tell you his story. He ruled for 66 years, from approximately 1279 to 1213 BCE. Think of that, longer than most people lived in the ancient world. He outlived many of his children, and ultimately his 13th son became his successor. Ramesses was a builder on a scale almost unmatched. Everywhere you look in Egypt, you see his name, his face, his monuments. Abu Simbel, the Ramesseum, additions to Karnak and Luxor temples. He even appropriated older monuments, carving his name over previous pharaohs. He wanted to be remembered. And he was a warrior. At the Battle of Kadesh against the Hittite Empire, Ramesses claimed a great victory, covering temple walls with dramatic scenes of his bravery. But Hittite records tell a different story, likely the battle was more of a draw. Yet from this conflict came something more important than victory: peace. Ramesses signed the first recorded peace treaty in history with the Hittite king Hattusili III. The treaty was inscribed on silver tablets, and copies were kept in both Egyptian and Hittite archives. A clay copy of the Hittite version survives to this day. To seal the peace, Ramesses married a Hittite princess. He had many wives, at least 8 principal wives and dozens of secondary wives, and fathered over 100 children. His favorite wife was Nefertari, whose tomb in the Valley of the Queens is one of the most beautifully decorated in all Egypt. When Ramesses died, at around 90 years old, he had lived so long that most Egyptians had never known another pharaoh. His mummy survived the millennia and was examined in modern times. He had arthritis, bad teeth, and hardened arteries. But in death, as in life, his presence was commanding. Even now, over 3,000 years later, his name is known, his monuments stand, his story continues. Rest easy, let's drift onward together. Religion and gods. Fact 81. Ancient Egyptians worshipped over 2,000 gods and goddesses. Each controlled different aspects of life and nature. The pantheon was complex and interconnected. Fact 82. Ra, the sun god, was one of the most important deities. Egyptians believed he sailed across the sky in a boat each day and journeyed through the underworld each night, battling the serpent of chaos, Apophis. Fact 83. Isis was perhaps the most beloved goddess. She was the ideal mother and wife, goddess of magic and healing. Her cult spread beyond Egypt throughout the Roman Empire and lasted until the 6th century CE, long after most Egyptian religion had disappeared. Fact 84. Anubis, the jackal-headed god, guided souls to the afterlife and presided over mummification. Jackals were often seen in cemeteries, so Egyptians associated them with death and protection of the dead. Fact 85. Bothet, the cat goddess, was associated with home, fertility, and protection. Her cult center at Bubastis hosted one of ancient Egypt's largest festivals, where hundreds of thousands would gather to celebrate. Fact 86. Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom and writing, was believed to have invented hieroglyphs. Scribes would pour a drop of water as an offering to Thoth before beginning their work. Fact 87. The gods were not all-powerful or immortal in the Egyptian view. They could be wounded, could need food and clothing, could age. Temples served as the gods' houses, where priests cared for statues as if they were living beings. Fact 88. Ordinary people rarely entered temple sanctuaries, which were reserved for priests. Instead, they worshipped at home shrines and participated in religious festivals where the god's statue was carried through the streets. Fact 89. The Opet festival at Thebes lasted for weeks. The statue of Ammonius was carried from Karnak to Luxor Temple in an elaborate procession, and the pharaoh's divine right to rule was symbolically renewed. Fact 90. Egyptians believed in magic as a natural force. Magicians, who were often also priests, used spells, amulets, and rituals to protect people from harm, heal illness, and ensure good fortune. Legacy and mysteries. Fact 91. The Egyptian language evolved over millennia. Ancient Egyptian gave way to Demotic, which gave way to Coptic. Coptic is still used today as the liturgical language of the Coptic Christian Church, making it the last surviving form of the ancient Egyptian language. Fact 92. Many English words come from ancient Egypt via Greek and Latin: paper, from papyrus; chemistry, possibly from chemet, adobe, from Egyptian dbt meaning brick, ebony, from Egyptian hbnj, and more. Fact 93. Napoleon's invasion of Egypt in 1798 brought scholars who documented Egypt's monuments in detail. Their work, published as Description de l'Egypte, helped spark Egyptomania in Europe and laid the foundation for modern Egyptology. Fact 94. The Suez Canal, completed in 1869, fulfilled a dream ancient Egyptians attempted several times. Ancient canals connecting the Nile to the Red Sea existed but were difficult to maintain due to silting. Fact 95. Modern archaeology in Egypt has used ground-penetrating radar, satellite imagery, and muon detectors to find hidden chambers in pyramids and lost cities beneath the sand. Technology reveals what the desert has hidden. Fact 96. The exact method used to build the pyramids remains debated. Theories include straight ramps, spiral ramps, internal ramps, or combinations. We still don't know for certain, a mystery that keeps us wondering. Fact 97. Many pharaohs' mummies were moved multiple times in ancient times as priests tried to protect them from tomb robbers. In 1881, a cache was discovered containing over 50 royal mummies, hidden together in a single tomb. Fact 98. The Great Sphinx is the oldest known monumental sculpture, carved from a single piece of limestone. Its face was once thought to represent Khafre, but some scholars now debate this. The Sphinx has watched over Giza for approximately 4,500 years. Fact 99. Hieroglyphs were forgotten after Egypt became Christianized and later Islamized. For over 1,400 years, no one could read ancient Egyptian writing. The knowledge seemed lost forever, until the Rosetta Stone helped unlock the mystery in the 1820s. Fact 100. Egypt's influence on Western civilization is profound and often unrecognized. From architecture to medicine, from religious concepts to legal principles, echoes of ancient Egyptian civilization resonate through our modern world. Closing. And there we have it, friend, 100 facts and stories about ancient Egypt. We've traveled together through 3,000 years, met pharaohs and queens, workers and scribes, gods and ordinary people trying to live good lives. What strikes me most about ancient Egypt is how much they cared. They cared about beauty, about justice, about family, about living well and dying well. They believed that speaking the name of the dead kept them alive in memory. By learning their stories tonight, we've kept them alive once more. As you drift off to sleep now, or if you're still awake and peaceful, know that you're connected to this long chain of human existence. People who lived and loved, who built and created, who looked up at the same stars we see and wondered about eternity. Thank you.